Hello everyone, welcome back to another Ableton tutorial. Lovely to have you here. Big shout out to the Patreon crew. Patreon members will be able to download this project. Big shout out to everyone getting involved on YouTube as well. It means a lot. Right, let's get into it. So, you read a title in this video. You can hear what's happening in the background. Looking at today, what are we looking at today? Looking at Generative Polytonal Polyphony. Wow, that sounds like a mouthful. It sounds complicated. It's not. Let's first of all unpack a little bit about what I mean by generative polytonal polyphony. Well, let's begin with the first word, generative. So if you've watched any videos on my channel, you will see that I like to explore generative processes in my music making, things that have sort of a range of possible outcomes that we can define, but that within that range of outcomes, I like to let Ableton do the work. Why not? You know, it gives me more time to drink tea, really. So when I talk about generative, I'm talking about defining a range of outcomes, but that it will continue to evolve. What you can hear happening behind you, it's just making it up by itself, really. That's the generative part. What do we mean by polytonal? Well, you may have heard the term polyrhythm. Poly just means many, so polyrhythm is many rhythms happening at the same time. So when we say polytonal, we mean many keys, two or more key centers happening at the same time. And I'll dig into a little bit more what I mean by that later on. And then the last part of that, polyphony. Again, the poly is many, and phony, phonos comes from voice, so many voices. So polyphony is a style of music writing where you have two or more melodic lines that sort of intertwine with each other. So things like Bach's 2 and 3 part inventions are good examples of polyphony, where there's 2 or 3 or more melodic lines that are doing their own thing but have a relationship with each other and sort of intertwine with each other. So that's the title of the video, Generative Polytonal Polyphony. So we're looking at trying to make a system that will make up by itself 2 or more melodic lines that have 2 or more key centers. It's not so complicated, is it? It doesn't sound so complicated when you listen to what's happening in the background. So what I'm going to do, as per usual, is just delete, and we're going to start from scratch. So we're going to... that's gone, and I just have in the background here just a field recording of some ice because I thought that sounded nice. I thought it made the intro music sound a bit nicer, so we'll leave that in there for now. Right, okay, so I'm going to begin with a wavetable synthesizer. So I'm just going to drag that into a new channel. Yeah, we're going to use this to sort of design the sounds and design the systems. Most of what we're going to be doing today involves MIDI effects, things that we can do with MIDI. So first of all, though, I'm going to create one MIDI clip inside this wavetable, and I'm going to just make it half a bar long. And if you're wanting to follow along today, I've made the tempo 80 BPM for this. Doesn't have to be, it's just what I felt sounded nice for what I was working on. So what I'm going to do inside this MIDI clip is I'm going to create 2 notes on C3 and 1 note on C2. And that's going to be all of the MIDI programming that we're doing for today. That was easy, wasn't it? that box is ticked. So that sounds like this. Rather unsurprising. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide those 2 notes up into two different hands, 2 different voices. I'm kind of imagining that I might try and play this on a piano. So I'm going to bring in 2 different, I'm going to divide those and treat them differently. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to bring in any old random MIDI effect. I'm going to bring in random. I'm going to group that. Select it, Command G. I'm going to open up this show hide chain list, and I'm going to duplicate that. So click on it, press Command D. Now I'm going to divide up these 2 hands, the left hand and the right hand, using the key selector. So as you saw, I programmed in 2 notes on C3 and 1 on C2. So these are the only things we need. I'm going to make one of them only select C2, and I'm going to make the other one only select C3. I've not quite done that right, have I? There it is. Okay. So now I'm going to rename these. Just again, I'm going to go with this idea that I'm trying to play it on a piano. So I'm going to name it left hand and right hand. Unsurprisingly. Right. Let's focus on what's going to happen with the left hand. Okay. So we're having one note every 2 beats, every 2 counts. I want to probably randomize that note. That's nicely to start with a random plugin. So I'm going to turn the chance up, and but I'm going to make it just 6 choices, and I'm going to make it go bi-directional, so it can go up or down from that original note C input. I'm going to bring in a note length in here because I want to use this function here, the latch function. Now what this will do is we'll hold the previous note until a new note is triggered. So when I turn this on, you see it's holding that note, and already I'm just going to go over here to the wavetable and just adjust that amplitude envelope, the decay on that amplitude envelope down a little bit so it's not quite so present after the note is played. Right, okay. Now, I want to create a situation where it's not playing every one of these notes. I'm going to do that using velocity information. So we're just focusing on, this is the note that's doing things at the moment. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to give it a velocity deviation. Let's make the start of it 127, and let's make the deviation 100. Can I make that 127? 126. Right, okay. So we're now getting all possible velocities coming in. And when I go over to this chain selector over here and select velocity, it's showing obviously let's even mute those for now, these top ones, so we can see what's happening. Now we come back here and you can see this little velocity marker is sort of jumping around all over the place. So I can use that to say, I only want you to play 2/3 of these notes. So I'm going to bring down this velocity thing to around 80. And now you can see it's skipping notes up the top. It's not playing, and now it's coming back in. There we go. So now it's not playing all of the notes. Every now and then it will not play a note. This is a good start. Now, I also wanted to sometimes play 2 notes inside the space of 1 note. So I'm going to do that using a note echo. I'm going to bring the note echo in front of the latch because I want the note echo to also be triggering the latch. So it's important to think about MIDI chains, MIDI signal chains in what we're looking at today. So I'm going to turn the feedback right the way down. And now we can hear it doing a sort of delay thing. So I want it to be like this. That's nice. Now, I don't want it to do that every time. Maybe I only want that to do that again, 1/3 of the time that is going to play this kind of 2 notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group that. I'm going to open up again the show hide chain list. I'm going to right click, create chain. So that's normal. And I'm going to call this note echo thing. What are we going to call it? It's a little bit like a legato. I mean, it's not legato run, but let's call it legato for the sake of description. Now, so I want normal to happen 2/3 of the time and legato to happen 1/3 of the time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the chain selector for this. So I'm going to say normal, I want 2, and legato, I want 1. Now, when I move the chain selector, at the moment it's just playing normal. Now, when I move it over to the legatos, then we're getting those sort of repeat notes. So I'm now going to connect that to a macro, open up the macros, right click, map to macro 1. We only need that 1 macro for this. I'm going to rename this MIDI effect rack. legato effects. Now I'm going to bring in an expression control. Wait a minute. I should have just stated MIDI effects. Expression control. Now I want this expression control to be triggering every time it gets a new MIDI note. So yes, this is where I want it. Don't know why I double clicked it. That was what I wanted to double click. So now I'm just going to set that to random. I'm going to hit this and select it to the change selector. I want, as we can see, the change selector is now flipping all over the place. So I want to constrain that range. So I'm going to open up the mapping options and I want it to go from 0 to 2. So now each time a new MIDI note comes in, we're getting a new random value here, and I'm going to set it to randomize 100%. And that is 2/3 of the time that's selecting normal, and 1/3 of the time that's selecting the legato channel. Now, inside the legato channel, I want to put another random, because at the moment it's just sort of echoing the note, it's repeating the note, but I'm going to put a random in here. And this random, I only want it to go up and down a small amount. So I'm going to set the interval to 2 and the choices to 1, and it can either go upwards or downwards, and randomize that 100% of the time. Come on, give me one, give me one, give me one. Come on. I'm going to force it to give me one so that we can actually hear what's happening. And I'm going to change this to alternate so that it's it's cycling through the choices that it can make. Maybe I'm going to set this a bit higher. I was wondering why it wasn't doing anything. It's because the choices are set to 1. Choices to set to 2, please. And I'm going to bring the interval back down to 2. There we go. There we go. There we go. And maybe I can put this back to random now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's nice. That's nice. So every time it hits into the legato, we're getting a little thing. It's either going to then play the note upwards or the note downwards. Right, so we have a nice thing happening for the left hand now. So I'm going to, for now, I'm going to turn that off, and let's do some stuff with the right hand. I'm going to unmute these notes, select 0. 0 is the key command to unmute. I am going to mute that bottom note as well, just so we can clearly see what's going on. Again, yeah, let's do some randomization on the velocity. So I'm going to set the deviation to be 127 again. And in this case, I'm just going to say, we're going to chop off the bottom third. Again, so now it's not playing every single note. Now, we want to turn the charts up. Let's make this quite a big range of choices. Let's go for 2 octaves. Let's go for 24 semitones. Why not? Why not? Right. Similar effect process here. Now I'm going to bring in the note length in here. And we're going to turn on latch again. So remember now that that's now holding the previous note until it's given a new note. Now let's bring in again a note echo. Feedback down to 0%, so it's only creating 1 copy. This is quite nice. Okay, I'm going to create a variation of that. I'm going to select Command G, group it, and I'm going to call this, this is kind of 8th notes. Let's make one where it does 16th notes. So let's duplicate that, turn one of them off, and we want this. And now we just want to turn up the feedback just so we can hear, there we go. Lovely. I want a normal one, of course, where it's not doing anything, so let's call that normal. And let's again call this legato effects. This one was the 16th, yes. Okay, now same again, let's turn you all on. Let's turn on the chain selector here. And I'm gonna say that 16ths, I actually want that to happen half the time. 1/4 of the time it's gonna get an 8th note, and 1/4 of the time it's gonna get normal. So again, we're gonna right click, we're gonna map that to macro 1. We only need the one macro. Again, we're going to need to constrain the range. This time it goes from 0 to 3. Is that 3? Yes, 0 to 3. And now again, I'm going to bring in an expression control in here. And again, I'm going to turn that to random. And again, I'm going to map that to the chain selector. And let's make that 100% random as well. Maybe the 16th notes one is nice to have like the 5th note, which would be the start of the next beat. So I'm just... again, I'm gonna just... It's now doing... Let's give it a little bit more. Yeah. Lovely, lovely. Right, okay, so we now have 2 voices. I need to unmute the bass note in here, of course. Where have you gone? Where have you gone? It's disappeared. There it is. So we now have Generative Polyphony. So let's look at the polytonal part of the video description. So, polytonal, as I mentioned, yeah. Let's just stop that for now. Of course, that's now going to latch there. Okay, so polytonal, as I mentioned, you know, we're talking about 2 key centers happening at the same time. Now, Ableton 12 lets you set sort of a global key center for the whole song. Don't want to use that. I want to use MIDI effects to do this. So I'm going to double click that. We're going to go back to left hand. I am on the left hand. And so everything that happens up until here is only affecting the chain on the left hand. So I'm going to bring a scale device in here. So I'm going to go MIDI effects, scale. I'm going to choose Dorian because I seem to like Dorian a lot at this time. So now what that's going to do is it's going to force all of the notes in the left hand, which we've randomized quite a bit, to be inside this key center of C Dorian. What I'm actually going to do as well is say, I'm going to bump this. So this is effectively what the B flat, the 7th degree of the scale. So what this is doing is it's saying that when it gets in this value, which could go either way, it could bump it up or it could bump it down, it's going to bump it down. I'm going to make that a C. So I get that key center, that C, that fundamental, that tonic, just that little bit more often in this key center. So it's now let's call it user. It's still Dorian. It's still a Dorian scale. It just says user because I've moved that one note. Right. Now I want to put in a different key center in the right hand. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, collapse that. I'm going to bring in Dorian again, and I'm going to instead change this from C to something else. Now, if I use a key center that is close to C, then we're going to get less dissonance. If I use a key center that's a long way away from C, we're going to get more dissonance. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a concept in Western tonal music called the circle of fifths, and you may have seen it. I'm going to bring it up now. The circle of fifths looks a bit like this. This is quite a simple version. You may have seen much more complicated versions. Again, it doesn't need to be complicated at all. This circle of fifths is sort of what we use as the foundation for a lot of Western tonal harmony. I'm not going to go so far into it now. If you'd like me to make a video on it, comment below, but I will link to some other great videos about the circle of fifths if you want to dig into that a little bit more. But what it essentially tells us is that C and G in terms of key centers are very close to each other. C and A minor are also effectively equivalent key centers. They all use all the same notes in the scale. So for instance, a C major scale uses the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. An A minor scale uses all of exactly the same notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We just start on a different note. A G tonal center uses all of the same notes apart from one. A G major tonal center uses G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G, which are exactly the same notes as the C, apart from the F from the C becomes an F sharp in the G. And likewise, the E minor uses all of those same notes, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. So the further away from C we get, the more notes get changed. When we go 2 steps away to here to D, we have 2 notes that are different, the F sharp and the C sharp. Here, 3 notes that are different from the C, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, and so on and so forth. The further away you get, the more notes you have that are different, and therefore the more dissonant those key centers are going to sound when they're put on top of each other. So I'm just going to go back to Ableton now. So I have my key center here, so I'm going to select G, which, as we saw from the circle of fifths, 1 step away. So the only different note is then E and E flat. In C Dorian, we have an E flat, and in G Dorian, we have an E. That's the note that's different there. So just 1 note that's different, but we now have a polytonal polyphony happening. Let's see how that sounds. So occasionally we're getting these crunchy notes, which I really like. If I change this key center to be something that's further away, so if we go back to the circle of fifths, so I'm using C Dorian and G Dorian at the moment. If I was to use like say E Dorian, we're going to get a lot more crunchy notes. So I'm going to switch this up. A lot more crunchy notes. Let's go back to G, and I realize in my right hand legato patch I haven't added the randoms that we need. My goodness me, how remiss of me. So inside here I need to add some randomizations. Not on that one, that's our normal one, but on this one I need to add a random in here, and again I'm going to set the interval to 2, the steps choices to 2, and we're going to change this to alternate, and it can either go up or down, and chance of course needs to be up at 100%. So now we're getting these lovely little runs. There we go, really nice. Same thing with the 8th note, bring in a random. Oh, come on, random, in you come. Chance at 100%, choices to 2, interval to 2, alternate, and by. So we now have two voice polyphony. 2-voice generative polytonal polyphony. Well done us. I'm just going to duplicate this right hand actually, because I think that'd be quite nice. So just click on it. Quite nice. I'm just going to bring in a compressor at the end here, because occasionally it's popping now, because there's a lot of notes happening at the same time. So let's bring in a compressor, threshold down, a ratio all the way up. Yeah, okay, now we're not popping. Maybe I'll bring this down a little bit. This is quite nice. What I'm also going to do is, on one of these right hands, whenever it does this run of 16ths, can I do this? Yeah, I'm gonna make it harmonize it. So I'm going to bring in a chord. So look at the MIDI channel that I'm choosing here. One of the 2 right hand channels. Let's call it right hand 2. on right hand 2, every time the MIDI note comes in, actually let's make it not always happen, right hand 2, so a lot less. Every time a MIDI note comes in, it's being randomized. Every time a MIDI note comes in, we're selecting either normal 16th notes or 8th notes in terms of the pattern that it's going to play. So just on this right hand 2, every time it does 16th notes, I'm going to make it do that, harmonize it in thirds. So I'm going to use a MIDI effect. I'm going to use the chord effect. I'm just going to bring that in, and I want that to be after the random, yes, because this is randomizing notes, and I want the notes to stay together. And I'm just going to... There we go. It did it. Did it right when I turned it on. So every now and then we're getting these... Yeah, nice. Every now and then we're getting these harmonizations. I'm also going to bring in the left hand... I want to constrain the velocity a bit more. So I'm going to bring in a velocity right at the start of the whole chain. Doesn't really matter where I put it in this chain. A little bit of random. Nice. Okay, a little bit of sound design here. I'm not going to spend ages on this because there's a lot of other fantastic videos about sound design on YouTube. But let's just do a little thing. Let's just maybe add a bit of shimmer unison. Already quite nice. A bit less here. Lovely. Let's add a tiny bit of stuff like some LFO to the pitch here. So I'm going to click on detune. I'm going to click on matrix. Way, a little bit of LFO to the pitch. That's a lot. We'll turn down the amount here. Lovely. And I'm going to bring in my 4-tap granular delay effect. I made a previous video on this. I'll put a link in the description if you want to look at how to make this for yourself. Open up the chains thing here and create a dry chain. Turn this filter up a bit more gain here. Turn this one up to 12 semitones. Lovely. Let's have some Foley effects. There we go. There we go. Generative Polytonal Polyphony, everyone. Ha! So, obviously I didn't do so much sound design stuff with this. I wanted to explore a concept more than I wanted to tell you how to make a specific piece of music. You don't need to make music like me, you need to make music like you. You're adults, you can make your own decisions about what to do with sound design, what sounds might be nice to use with this, and, you know, all these sorts of ideas inside, how often to make things do runs, how often to hide notes, you know, turn the tempo up, turn the tempo down, all of those sorts of things. Please share with me any results. I would love to hear how you're exploring these things in your own music. That's it for today. Thanks for being here. It means a lot.